Welcome to week 5. We are now looking at equation of a circle. This one is actually going to be a very simple lesson. You are going to have to learn a little bit of mechanics on this, but it should be very, very easy and very nice, which is good because the next one's going to be a little more challenging. So with the equation of a circle, what we have up here is we have the standard form of the circle. We use all these letters just to represent values that we're going to replace. The x and the y are going to stay permanent. What the h value is, and you'll actually notice it has a negative in front of it, so this is the opposite of the x coordinate for the center. Whoops, I moved ahead a page. Let's go back. In this y parenthesis, again, you'll see a negative here. This negative means this is the opposite of the y coordinate of the center. And then the constant that's by itself over here on the right-hand side of the equation is always going to be our radius squared. So to get r, the radius, you're going to have to take the square root of that. Now, this is how we would go from the equation to getting our center and radius. We're going to start out by taking the center and radius and writing the equation. So if you want to write the equation when you're given the center and the radius, what you're going to do is you're going to put this equation on paper, and then you're going to substitute in the values. This is what we would normally do. What you're going to do is you can do this on paper, which definitely is always good advice, but you can also just type in your answer into the computer, because I believe we're asking you for either the number that's here, the number that's here, the number that's here. It should be like a fill in the blank. So looking at this first example, since our x-coordinate for our center is -4, when we go to put it in the equation, we make it its opposite. So this is going to be +4. This is seriously how easy this is. What goes in the parenthesis with the y is always going to be the opposite of the y-coordinate of the center, so that's going to be -1. And then finally, the radius squared is what's going to go at the end. So all we have to do is 9 squared, which hopefully we all know is 81. Now this next one, I'm going to probably have to rewrite it up here because I don't have the ability to see it with that lovely little video screen share thing there. So we're going to just do this real quick. I should have seen that coming. All right, so for this one, we're putting again the opposite. So the opposite of +3 would be -3. The opposite of +9 would be -9. And then here at the end, we're going to have a little bit of a problem. If you doubt me, you can do this in your calculator. If I take the square root of 5 and I square it, what I have to realize is, just like multiply and divide are opposites of each other, a root and an exponent are opposites of each other. Even though there's no number written here, and you're going to learn about this next year, it's called an index. Anytime there's no number written there, it's a 2. So if this is a square root and it is squared, what happens is they cancel each other out. And so we're going to get rid of that because that's just me trying to kind of pre-teach you what's coming. You're going to just, if you want to check it in your calculator, you just type in the square root of 5, and then you would square it. And lo and behold, you're going to get 5. Okay. So you can test me out on this. The kids in my honors class should already know this. There's also this lovely little trick about radicals, is what these guys are called. Anytime you have square roots, as long as these two roots are equivalent, like they're both square roots, they're distributive. So what that means is that you can take that square root and put it over the two 5's being multiplied, and you would end up with the square root of 25. So this is basically why it works. And the square root of 25 is in fact 5. So again, they do cancel each other out. So now when we square that square root of 5, what we're going to end up with over here is just 5. Hopefully that makes a little sense. We're going to practice it again with this last one. All right, so again, if my x-coordinate for the center is -9, I put the opposite in the equation. If my y-coordinate for the center is -14, I put the opposite number in the equation. And then finally, if I have square root of 10 squared, it's just going to be 10. So hopefully this first set of examples makes some sense. This lesson is going to be short and sweet. It should be very simple. We should hopefully do really well. Now, you're also going to have a few where you're going to have to identify the key parts in the graph. So this one actually is not that difficult either. If they want the center, the first thing you're going to do is locate that coordinate. When you're typing these coordinates in, you want to put the parenthesis, no spaces, and then put in the coordinate for the x value, which if we go down here, we should see is -4, and then the coordinate for the y value, which is 2. Absolutely no spaces. If you put spaces, the computer will count it wrong. It's very, very specific. It has to be exactly the same way that we typed it in the key. All right, now to get the radius, all we're going to do is remember counting on the graph is like counting how many blocks you drive. How many blocks is it to go from the center to the edge of the circle? And so in this case, we end up with 3. Now you can count the diameter, or you can realize the diameter is 2 radii. And I did a bad job with vocabulary in the last video. Radii is the plural of radius. Radius is singular, it's one of them. So radius is 1, a diameter is 2 radii. So 2 times 3 would give me a diameter of 6. If you want to visually see it, we can extend out that line and show that there are actually 6 units across the circle. All right, this next one, we're going to do the same kind of process, but we've got a little trick here that I want to discuss. So our x coordinate is 3, and our y coordinate for the center is 4. So that guy's easy. All right, now if I look at the radius, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 units, right? The radius is 4 units long, right? Right? I hope somebody's going to argue with me. Notice what's going on here. This is 3, then we're skipping a line and we're going to 4. So what's in the middle here? 3.5. So it takes 2 of these to make one whole. And you'll see they kind of bolded the lines. So you want to really watch the scale on your graph. So how long is the radius actually? It takes 2 of these to make one block. We're talking in half blocks here. So the radius would actually be 2. 0.5, 0.5, there's 1. 0.5, 0.5, there's 2. Again, looking at the diameter is 2 radii. So the total diameter would be 4. Hopefully that one made sense as well. You're going to have one, I do believe that it does label the half units in it though. That is going to be a little tricky like this, so please be careful. All right, the last thing you're going to have to do is you're going to be given the equation of the circle, and you're going to have to find the radius, the center, and the diameter. So we're going to go through that process with 3 different problems. So the center is really simple. All you do is take the number that's in the equation and put its opposite. So the opposite of -13 would be +13. The opposite of +5 would be -5. Okay, then for radius, again, remember this number is the radius squared. So what you're going to do is take the square root of that radius, radius squared that's over here by itself. So we end up with a radius of 2. Finally, to get the diameter, you're going to take the radius and multiply it by 2 because the diameter is 2 radii. So 2 times 2 is going to give us 4. So see how easy it was? I wasn't lying. All right, the next one, to find the center of the circle, we're going to take the opposite value of what's in the equation. So the opposite of +4 is -4. The opposite of +8 is -8. And that's our center. To get the radius, we're going to take the square root of the radius squared that's displayed in our equation. So the square root of 49, which would be 7. Finally, the diameter is kind of hard to see down here, so I'm just going to try to, oh my gosh, I guess not. It would just be 7 times 2, which would be 14. So again, the diameter is always 2 radii, and so that would be 14. Last example, to get the center again, all we're going to do is take the opposite of what's in the parentheses. The opposite of -1 is +1. The opposite of -3 is +3. Again, when you're typing these in the computer, please do not put any spaces between them. Parenthesis 1, comma 3, parenthesis. All right, finally, the radius is going to be the square root of 121. And these should all turn out to be pretty because I didn't want to have to deal with the trauma of the classes that aren't used to it trying to put in this square root symbol. So we'd end up with a radius of 11. Again, to get your diameter, you're going to do 11 times 2, which would be 22. And again, the reason that is happening is because your diameter is always 2 radii. I hope this helped. I hope it's a very simple lesson. It should be. It's not meant to be difficult, and we just felt you should be exposed to how the mechanics of the circle equation work. If you do have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thanks. See you last week is next week.